On this episode of Clone Talk.
Cannabis growers are starting to get keen to the fact that they can market this little egg's growing, and all of a sudden the egg hatches and eats the aphid from the inside out. And so
Crazy.
you've got this dead aphid and you got this new wasp, and the cycle continues. Nematodes are a great tool that they're going to hurt thrips, they're going to hurt fungus gnats, they're going to hurt root aphids. You can mix them and spray them right on your leaves. So like if you're going to dump all your money into something, start your new crops clean and maintain them clean.
Hey team, Clone Coach here. Are you tired of struggling with your clones? Slow rooting times, purple stems, yellow growth, damping off, and so much more. Now, wherever you are in the world, the best tool to have in your nursery are the Clone Coach SOPs. These SOPs provide step-by-step instructions and expert guidance to get you the best clones ever. Join the team today at clonecoach.com. Welcome to the Clone Coach podcast. I'm Paul, your Clone Coach, and today I have Nick from the Plantsman group. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing great, Paul. How you doing, man?
Excellent, man. It's a beautiful morning for me. Where are you based out of? Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Southeast Michigan, so kind of right by Ann Arbor and Detroit. But yeah, absolutely perfect summer day today.
Yeah, that's not too far from where I was. I think when we were DMing a little bit on the when I was out in Toledo, Ohio. Shout out to the crew out there where I did that workshop, man. So next time that's close enough for us to link up.
Heck yeah. Toledo Indoor Garden is where it's at. Those guys are always on top of it. And yeah, I'm about an hour away from those guys. So definitely next time you're out in the area, we should definitely link up.
Absolutely. So for everybody out there, let's touch base on the broad strokes background of Nick here. What's your background like, and what kind of brought you up to where we are today?
Yeah. I have a degree in horticulture. So I was originally just a head grower. That was kind of my main role.
Mm-hmm.
And, background went to Michigan State for horticulture, worked at a bunch of large greenhouses as their, head or assistant grower, learning, the ins and outs of large scale production. In the midst of that, I've been dabbling in the bugs. So that's kind of where I honed in all my skills of working at these large greenhouses and helping them kind of convert over from these heavy spray oriented protocols to a more holistic, beneficial, forward approach.
Yeah.
But, I wasn't always going to get into, horticulture, and originally was going to get into education when I first went into college, and ended up growing a cannabis plant in my apartment in a hydro system, and just fell in love with the process and the plant. And, it turned me from going into education to going into horticulture, and kind of switched my whole direction.
The power of the plant, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing.
That's a good segue, because my next question was what is your connection to the plant, right? What is your connection? What is your background with it? What are your thoughts? Like, is it all encompassing like it is, in my life? Once I look back at it now, like it's always been there, or once I came into my life, it hasn't really left. Has it been the same for you?
It's been the exact same. I mean, I think, first experiences were in early high school, maybe 13. I've been a regular user my whole life. I find immense benefits from it personally. I was born with cerebral palsy on my left side, so I have a very mild case, which has given me some limitations and some kind of different muscle issues, but I have found significant improvement on a number of different things just from cannabis. And I didn't really realize it at first as a kid. But as I'm getting older, and when I take time off of it, I realize how much kind of anti-inflammatory and muscle spasticity help I get from that, along with just it improves my daily life. It makes me a much more patient human and a better boss, dad, person in general. So yes, I'm a regular user. I use it morning, noon, and night. And I love flower. I love flavor. I'm a flavor chaser. My wine cellar is full of different flavors of weed, and I love it.
That sounds fantastic, man. Yeah, that's right up my alley too. I've been a regular user for a very long time now, and I stick with flower always. It's always flower and flavor for me. I've tried dabs, but it's just I'm not a dab guy. But
Yeah.
for me, I kind of it's like that that working writer that's just like smoking and working and write and just
Yep.
like that even if it's a calm situation, that's like your therapy of taking breaths in and out. Or if you're
Meditation
working,
time, man.
it's
Yep.
good for everything. So I'm with you on that, and I'm sure a lot of people out
100%.
there are on the same base, right, in the same track. And it's a solid reminder that you could accomplish so much even if you're consuming this plant every single day, every day.
100%.
You could still become
Yeah.
a business person, graduate college, be a good father, be a good person, like all these things, and you're consuming this plant daily. So it's
Yep. Totally agree. Yeah, the stigma is not true, or at least, I mean, it's not been the case for me and anyone that I've been around. And I think we all remember kind of the videos of the guy stuck on the couch,
oh
just
yeah.
full mush.
And then what we
But
would hear from all of our peers and loved ones or whatever of like, you want to amount to anything, or you can't
yep,
accomplish all these things or be a good person or what have you. You're going to go down a dark path. But
yep, for sure.
it's actually
No,
pretty
it didn't
bright.
happen. It didn't happen. Their theory was wrong.
Exactly. For me, it's a bright path. I mean, I'm able to do something I love, and I'm engulfed with it, and meet others like you that are in the same path. It's like, dude, this is connection. This plant brings people together. You know.
100%. And I
So
would not be where I'm at without it. There's no question about it.
so how long you were a master grower? How many years was that happening? What was kind of um, that what was going on in your head during those years that was kind of giving you the itch to eventually go off on your own?
I mean, it was always a dream to do, and I mean, my current setup. So, like right now, I bought a greenhouse garden center about 10 years ago. That was like operating by an older owner and wanted to retire, and so I segued from being head grower to being owner of a large retail growing operation. We grow every kind of plant. I mean, literally vegetable, annual, perennial, shrub, tree, you name it, we grow it. So it's a very diverse thing, and
Hmm?
it's given me a really good breadth of knowledge on all different ways of growing. And I love that there's just no right and wrong way to do it in any plant, much less cannabis. Um, so, I've been owning this place, been honing my skills here. Before I bought the place, I was working with a large facility, helping them convert over to beneficials. It's always kind of been on the background for me as something that, as a grower, I hate spraying. I hate spraying, and as a conventional grower, I get to spray all the like nasty stuff that cannabis doesn't get to spray.
Mhm.
And it's normal for the ornamental industry. So suiting up with the Tyvek suit once or twice a week, full gas mask. Like, there's no way I'm not killing myself slowly.
Right.
Um,
Permeating
and
through some
so,
sort of gap somewhere.
yeah, there's no way. And when I finally got my own spot, I wanted to really make that my thing, my niche. So
Hmm.
I turned my garden center into a pesticide-free garden center, and it's my little marketing ploy, and it helps me differentiate myself from my competitors. And
Hmm.
there's really no one else doing it. It costs me more, but the benefits so far outweigh the costs. So,
Yeah.
I got little kids. I don't have to worry about the last time what I sprayed, what the REI is, all these different things.
Yeah.
They can go just put their face all over, whatever. It's like the little things to me are very important.
Yeah.
And I
That's
don't have to spray.
That's a good point because I mean we know what we're spraying, so we know like the half life, the residue, and yeah, that's exactly what I was imagining. Was like I wouldn't want my loved ones, my little ones, running around and grabbing and touching, knowing like what's been applied to these plants. Sometimes like yeah, that's exactly what I was picturing, and the fact
Well,
that
in most greenhouses, they'll spray the night before, and they just have to wait 12 hours, maybe 12-hour REI, re-entry interval, to
huh,
go back into that space. That they don't have to tell you. Most people that go shopping at a greenhouse, they could have sprayed the day before. It's not like you're gonna die, but you know, I can smell it. I know the smells, the
hmm,
avid smell,
mm,
all those different nasty chemicals that I'm familiar with. I've used them a million times. They work,
right,
but they come at a cost. So it's been great for me, and it's really helped propel my business forward. And I'm hoping kind of cannabis growers are starting to get keen to the fact that they can market this, as
Right.
a pesticide free or chemical pesticide free, product. Because I think a lot of consumers would vastly prefer to, have something that they can feel confident hasn't been nuked with a bunch of shit. But
Right. And even still knowing that, cannabis is very limited on what could be sprayed, but there's always still residuals. There's always still people's concerns. There's always, combination of chemistries. There's just a lot of little factors. But, hats off to you that in a nursery garden center that has the ability to spray all the harsh stuff and quote unquote make life easy. One spraying, you're done. You're not looking back at, behind this check scouting even more.
yep,
Even with that ability, you said no. I'm not going to take the easy path. I'm going to go the correct route that's correct in your eyes, and that's
correct.
really really impressive. And doing so, a decade before this conversation happened, even more so, right? So that
Thank
really
you.
paints the picture on where your vision is and um, standing your ground on what you believe
For
in,
sure.
your vision.
And I mean, it worked. I just want everyone to know that like my business is booming and I'm watching garden centers around me fail. And so there's definitely some validity to it. And just like you said, standing your ground and picking your position and really running with it is, I think, everyone's just got to pick that route,
Hmm.
whether it's bugs or not, just, stick your grounds, like you're
Right.
saying.
And what is it, an inch wide, mile deep, right? Like
Yeah.
that's your niche, but you know everything about that, section that you picked out.
Yep.
Absolutely. So,
So I mean, yeah, just a couple of years ago, I was like, I realized that there's this huge gap in cannabis where there's just not the education or the interaction with the grower on how to implement these bugs
mhm,
efficiently and effectively. And when you call some of these companies, I've worked with all of them. Before I started Plantsman, I was a BioBest customer, I was a Copert customer. I've worked as a customer with all of them, and they've
mhm.
all been good and bad, and I've had positive and negative experiences. And the main take home was that I couldn't really find a company where I could just call them when I had a question or like get a good quick response
Mm.
and get some really deep, detailed information on how to release and how to have an effective system. So that's where we launched Plantsman. It was like, let's just focus on the customer service. Let's focus on the interaction with the grower. Let's just hold their hand as hard as we can to make sure that it goes perfectly. And so far, it's been awesome, and people are really enjoying that uh, just interaction, that hand holding to make sure that it's simple and effective and it works right.
That's a great strategy, and that leads us into Plantsman Group, which is the company you have now, which is the what organic pest prevention, I believe,
Yep.
is listed as, and essentially it's a predatory bug service, correct?
Yeah. I mean, we sell you beneficial insects that you can use in your indoor or outdoor garden that will be naturally occurring predators that will eat the pests that we fight on a day to day basis.
I love
So we're basically just harnessing what nature's already figured out for us and focusing it and delivering it in a really easy, efficient manner.
Lovely, lovely. And so as you alluded to earlier, Plantsman Group is steeped in customer service and trying to provide the best experience for the client in their garden to gain results so that everybody wins, essentially, right?
Exactly. Yep. And it's once you've done it a couple times, it's pretty simple, but that first step can be pretty daunting and really confusing. And like, man, that you go on my website, there's like 30 different bugs. You're like, what the
Yeah.
heck am I supposed to
Yeah.
do here? So what we generally do is we'll interact directly with the grower, figure out the details of their facility or grow room, and
Hmm.
then come up with a curtailed plan that focuses on their specific spot. And that's where we find the most success. Basically, I create what I call like a feeding chart for bugs. So I'll lay out, week one, use XYZ, week three, use this, and they'll know exactly what to do and when to do it. And then I'll work with them on the actual release and how to do that.
Is that
But
something
so
that
far,
you provide as like a one-on-one when you're working with the client, or is that something that the client could complete, fill out a form, and you're kind of bridge some of that gap there?
The vision in the long game is to kind of automate it a little bit, but right
Hmm.
now it's a direct interaction, a phone call or an Instagram, relay back and forth. I
Right.
basically have a set number of questions that I'll ask to get enough details of the facility to be able to lay out a plan that'll work,
Hmm.
and then we'll follow up after to ensure that the quantities are right. And every plan is fluid,
Hmm.
and nothing is like, all right, we're doing that and we're not straying from it. You gotta work with the bugs. The seasons change, the pressure changes. So usually, yeah, I'll do a phone call with a grower. It takes about 30 minutes. I can spit out a plan about 30 minutes after that,
Yes.
and we're rolling.
So is the location of the customer and the part of the year that the customer is in, like the season that the customer is in, is that a one of the factors that you're throwing in there as well?
Absolutely. We're going to have a whole different insect pressure. And when I say pressure, I mean just like how many bugs are trying to invade.
Mm.
Um, and so obviously in the spring and summer, we're going to have an increase in pressure.
Hmm.
And if you're growing in a greenhouse or something that's got open ventilation, you're gonna you're gonna experience a lot more pressure.
Hmm.
If you've got an indoor facility that's got really tight sanitation protocols, you can usually eliminate a lot of the problems that you have. But I try to, it's a holistic approach. So I'll hear all those pieces and keep them all in mind. And then I'll adjust the plans based on the season to maybe ramp up a little on this because we're going to expect to see some aphids, or we're going to see some thrips pop up, or late summer we'll see some more spider mites. So I
Got it.
try to keep those things in the back of my head when I'm creating these plans. And like I said before, I'll keep the plans are slightly fluid where we'll adjust up or down
Hmm.
depending on where we're at.
Nice, nice. So what are the top three predatory insects that let's paint a small, medium, large version of a potential client. Like a 10 lighter, a 50 lighter, and a 100 lights plus, right?
Hmm.
Indoor facilities. What are like the top three insects that they should start looking into first? Start diving into that mile deep
Yep,
conversation. What's the top three
for
for them?
sure. Yep. So the top three that we use on a preventative basis, so that's like very little or no pest pressure or presence in the facility,
Hmm.
would be a soil dwelling bug called Stradiolalaps schimitis. And this is a soil mite that lives in the media, and it loves fungus gnat larvae, and it loves thrip pupa, and it'll nibble on some root aphids, but it won't fully consume them. So this is going to be your root predator.
Hmm.
Um, and then up in the leaves, we'll use the Swirsky, the Ambulosis swirsky. And that's going to be a generalist that loves young thrips. It'll eat whitefly eggs and thrip eggs. It'll eat spider mites and spider mite eggs. So it's got a pretty wide array of pests. It'll even eat russets. So those two are for your leaves and your soil. And then we also will throw in the nematodes, the Steinomera felicia nematodes or the SF nematodes. Those are a great tool to have in your back pocket for fungus gnat and thrip control. You can keep it in the fridge. You can use it as a drench. You can use it as a spray. But those would be the top three bugs that I sell on a preventative basis.
Hmm.
And I would give you a totally different list if we're talking on a curative basis. So we've got problems and we're looking to kind of break through on those problems. So,
Yeah, and I definitely have preventative versus curative listed on the bullet points here because that's a huge determining factor. Some people say, what do I do for mites? Well, do you have them already? Are they
yeah.
covering your entire garden, or did you
Yeah,
find them on one plant during your scouting because you're scouting twice a week? Where
exactly.
are we at with the pressure, right? So the curative
Yep.
versus preventative is a big factor, folks. So keep that in mind right there. So on those top three, on the three rooms, right? The three indoor
Yeah.
rooms, assuming they got those three as the base, right? Do you
Yep.
start this, and assuming they all got decent protocols in their facility because they've had the conversation with you and they're tightening up their door, sealing some seals,
Yep.
got the airflow right, what have you, protocols with employees and covering your shoes and whatnot. Let's assume all that's taken care of because they're on their A game. All right, they're on their A game. Do you start incorporating multiple different types of insects, or do you just start increasing numbers and or both, or how does that look for each stage there?
Um, my goal on a facility is to do three separate releases, 3 weeks apart before week three of flower. And so we're basically starting really early in the plant's life, week one or two of veg, shoot them
Hmm.
again week 4 or 5 of veg, and then hit them again early to mid flower. And the biggest take home message I tell people is like starting early is so important. And starting at that young plant stage and on your moms is a really cost effective place to start
Hmm.
because you can use a lot less product to cover a lot more square footage. And
Hmm.
your plants are usually a lot tighter and basically pot tight. So it's a great place to start. And you can, like I said, you can use a lot less product to get on there. Um, so we generally will ramp up the quantities as the plants are ramping up in their size. And,
Okay.
so the quantity may be, let's say, a 25,000 bottle in early veg, and we bump that to a 50,000 bottle in flower or later veg. Um, we also, it's not just a repeat application of everything. We kind of target things depending on the stage of growth. So let's just say Swirsky, I will generally release as a broadcast sprinkling over the leaves in veg. But when I move into flower, I don't want to be spreading stuff all over my flowers and getting junk everywhere. So that's when we'll hang those little sachets. And so we'll switch the delivery method over as we're moving into flower. And um, did that fully answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it touched on the different types of applicators of these insects, right? I mean, earlier on, if people aren't familiar with them, there are some kind of loose. There's tubes with the loose insects along with their carrier media that you could essentially, sprinkle on. I've even put the little shaker caps, like the little seasoning shaker caps on them, or have like that kind of applicator. Just like, and you literally just, walk to your canopy and you're sprinkling on your moms or whatnot, and those insects start getting all those little nooks and crannies. Or the sachets that you touched on, which is kind of a pre-made little packet. Think of it like a little Bovita pack type of size with a
Yep.
little either a little clip to hang on the foliage or a little plant stake to stake it in somewhere, and that gets released and whatnot. But since these have such a decent amount of shelf life and active life with 3 week application turnarounds, what are the best ways to ensure you're keeping your population alive and thriving with the nuances of environmental and potential other sprays in the middle, whether they're light duty sprays like a light fungicide or an oxidizing fungicide or an insecticide
Hmm.
soap or anything like that? What's our best ways to ensure a thriving population for those 3 weeks?
Yep, that's a great question. And we don't want people to stop spraying altogether because you need to continue spraying. You need to manage your microbials and your powdery mildew, and
Hmm.
so we always recommend being strategic with your sprays. So I know I have bugs coming on Thursday. I'm going to get my spray in on Monday. I'm going to give my plants a good 2 to 4 days of downtime with no spray on them before I'm going to release. And then same with after release, I'll shoot for at least 2 weeks of time for the bugs to do their job before I'm going to put anything on top of them.
Got it.
Now there are some products. I'm very pro like BioSafe and BioWorks as far as companies that I work with that work alongside the beneficials really well. So I really like Zerotol and Oxyphos as
Hmm.
kind of keeping my plants clean, and those products work well at the rates that they suggest, right alongside the beneficial. So you don't really have to worry about just murdering everybody. Um, so if you are using our bugs, those are great products to use alongside. So is Botanigard, as just a general all-purpose insecticide that'll kind of keep things away. I think it works
Is that
medium
the
well.
is that the Bavaria bassiana, the
It is the Bavaria,
22W?
yes.
Okay.
Yep. So that's a beneficial bacteria that is meant to kind of um, infest the pest. And it works on a medium level. It's a preventative. So don't go into your room that's loaded with bugs and expect to spray the Bavaria and get total kill.
A
It's
knockdown
it's a
effect.
part of a bigger process. So yeah, those are the main things. So releasing, at least 2 to 4 days after you spray. I try to release in the morning, but I've released all throughout the day, and the bugs don't. Best practice would be doing it with lights off. I don't always follow that.
Mm,
Um, but shaking up your bottle when you get it, using it within 24 hours of receipt. Those are the big pieces. If you're not going to use them, um, there's only a few bugs that I'll put in the fridge. And when you buy bugs from me, packaging will tell you right on it whether you should refrigerate or not.
mm.
And Swirsky's and a lot of the other guys, I see people doing it, but they really don't want to be stuck in the fridge. And so just try to plan accordingly to release your bugs when you receive them. That's like just get them in your garden immediately.
I love it. I love it. And it's really good to hear that, products like Xerotol have aren't interfering with the applications of predatory insects because it's one of my favorite products. It keeps my clones clean. It keeps my mother plants clean. It's fast acting, low residual. Once it's dry, it's gone. So it's really, really nice to hear that factor there. Um, on the clones a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we move on there, any environmentals that you could experience from either clone into flower that may have an effect?
Not really. The bugs that we're using, at least those main three, have a pretty wide range of environments that they thrive in, and I've seen them succeed in very low humidities and super high temperatures, and
Okay.
vice versa. Like throwing them in the clone dome and watching them explode under high 100% humidity. It's like holy, what is going
Yeah.
on here?
Yeah.
So, um, I think on the packaging and from the companies, they've got some parameters that they recommend you stay within, but within growing cannabis, the way our plants want to be raised, they're going to fall within the parameters that the bugs like. So you really don't need to do any specific, environmental management to keep those bugs happy. You should just assume that the bugs are going to die in 2 to 4 weeks. And that's why we're going to keep releasing them every 3 weeks so that we're always kind of keeping their presence in the room, kind of just beating up anyone that comes our way.
I love it. I love it. So let's get ourselves into the clone room. Clone domes, mother plants, pre-soaking media. What are some? Let's brainstorm a little bit here. What would you implement in a nursery? Because I've had some clients say like some cloning media that has like a cocoa peat based type of structure that they're
Mhm.
concerned with either some nematodes coming in, some fungus gnats coming in, things like that. So some would it be wise to pre-soak along with those nematodes in that initial pre-soaking of your media?
I think that's something that we should be done regularly by everybody, and it's super cheap. And the way that we keep the propagation media moist is super favorable for those nematodes to just stick around.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get a 50 million package and break it into like 10 pieces, and you know it could go a long ways, basically. And I would like to do. I mean, me personally at my nursery, I do a nematode and root shield and Botanigard dip for all young plants after they're rooted as their step before transplant.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll fill up a big tub with, I think it's like 6 or 12 gallons of water, and I'll
Okay.
mix in my nematodes, a very healthy dose. I usually use just like a 50 million package. It's just like a very strong dose, but they cost $20. It's cheap.
Oh,
And I'll mix in 4 ounces of Botanigard and 4 ounces of Root Shield and submerge the entire plant, foliage and roots under this, and then send it on its way. And that's a great, easy way to inoculate the entire plant with a bunch of good stuff, starts you off clean, and sends you in the right direction.
so no
Um,
no concern or problem with putting nematodes on the foliage then, right? I mean,
no, no,
will they
I
be
use
there?
nematodes as a spray. Nematodes are a great tool that they're going to hurt thrips, they're going to hurt fungus gnats, they're going to hurt root aphids. Um, you can mix them and spray them right on your leaves. If you do that, you want to do it in the evening as the nematodes don't like light.
Hmm.
But it does work great. And I use it at my greenhouse when we're in peak season, we use it every week.
Wow.
And I'll mix Botanigard and nematodes as a preventative spray for all crops.
Nice, nice. So that little recipe there is the nematodes, the Botanigard, which is the Bavaria bassiana that we touched on earlier, and then the root shield, right,
And I
which is
can
the
share that
right.
recipe with you. I got that from BioBest years ago. That's their protocol. And BioBest, for those who don't know, is just another big beneficial insect supplier. And again, I've worked with them and Copert. Copert's the other big guy.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so I pull information from anywhere I can. I'm an information sponge. I love
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
So I've been grabbing pieces from every company I've worked with, and that's one that stuck with me as a really cheap, easy tool to get your plant starting clean. And again, that piece alone, starting clean, it goes so far and it translates so far.
Right.
And um, it's a piece that most people just like don't put enough. They don't put enough money into their clone and veg space, much less, what they're doing at that stage, which is they should just be inoculating the shit out of their plants with all the good stuff and not trying to inoculate it so heavy later when the plants are huge.
So that is such a good point, man. The veg and the clones and the mother plants and the whole nursery sector usually is the forgotten,
It's
person in the
terrible.
equation. It's the last thought that comes to mind when people are, bringing on an operation. And I realized that such a long time ago, and that's was one of the biggest reasons why I stayed focused on the nursery space. I was like, because it's a quiet space. There's not a lot of noise here. There's not a lot of competition. There's not a lot of people paying attention, right? And
Yep.
it's a shame because it's so important. And literally one of the biggest reasons why I've stuck to clones in a nursery sector as my niche from the get-go because it was to me it was so obvious, to everybody else it wasn't, and I was like, that's the recipe
Yeah.
to
I
find
mean,
your niche.
I feel you, man. We're filling similar quiet areas.
Yeah. So back to the
It's
clones and
good.
the domes. So we
Yeah.
want to inoculate. I'm probably going to put that into my SOP of just inoculating because I do a pre-soak
Yeah,
with
the
either
pre-soak would be a perfect spot. You
chlorine,
fill your five gallon
yeah,
bucket up, put 5 million
all the
nematodes
bennies,
in there.
all the bennies, all the good stuff, all
Yeah.
the
Yep.
activity, all the life, all the microbes, food to feed the microbes, but and the biofungicides to prevent against any root rot, anything like that. But I was normally using like myco-insecticides or bioinsecticides
Yep.
to help prevent that fungus gnat and stuff. But an easy $20 batch of nematodes I could
Well, in
pre-soak.
that $20 batch of nematodes, if you're doing, do you soak them in like a 5 gallon bucket or what's your kind
Well, it depends on the production. So
of? Okay.
usually it's the black and yellow totes
Yep.
with call it probably 10 gallons of solution at a time at the bottom, and
Okay.
essentially just saturating media before it gets plugged.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I like to
Yeah. I
try it
mean,
out there.
you could probably use half of that package, or maybe 20 to 25 million nematodes to fill that space.
Nice.
And a 50 million package is $20, so you can cut that into a couple pieces and spread it out across a couple runs. Because the
So
nematodes are great. They store in the fridge for like, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks. So you
so
don't
as
have to
long
use them
as you
all
have
up.
enough solution there, whether you're doing 500, 1,000, or 5,000 clones, as long as your solution level is good, and if you got to top off, then you top off a little block of nematode again, something like that, and it's
Exactly.
should be
I
plenty
mean,
accurate.
we're playing with millions of bugs at a time. So it's really just like, and the beauty with bugs is you can't really overdo it. You
Right.
know, oh shoot, I put way too much on. Oh well, like they're going to work even better. It's like,
Go
there's
eat
not
the
that
food
problem.
faster that they're hunting for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
S-
when I'm doing a spray, I usually shoot for like 5 million per gallon of solution, and that would be similar if I'm doing a full dunk. Um, so if your guys are looking for a good rate to use, you can just shoot for 5 million nematodes per gallon of solution.
Perfect. That's a nice little rule of thumb. Those little round numbers really
Yeah,
help everybody out.
for sure.
So on the clones again, is there anything else beyond, like, I've used like the Swarovski sachets inside
Hmm.
my domes, and like you said, just the trays were crawling with these little bugs, and I got pretty decent at identifying those Swarovskis because they're really fast moving. They're like
Hmm.
hunters. They're out there running, hunting down food. They're not slow
Yep.
moving. So could you help us identify the good and bad insects that we come across normally? Like, what are just some, it's without a microscope and actually seeing it, I'm sure you can't guarantee anything, but what
Yeah,
are some things that we could keep in our minds to help us identify and become more confident on what we're seeing, whether it's good or bad insects?
for sure.
Are you a cannabis grower looking for reliable and accurate pathogen testing for your plants? Look no further than MyFlora DNA. Their state-of-the-art lab offers testing for hop latent viroid, fusarium, as well as other pathogens that can cause harm to your crops. Trust them to provide you the information that you need to ensure the health of your plants. And for a limited time, use discount code CloneCoach at checkout for up to 20% off your entire order. Don't let pathogens ruin your crop. Choose MyFlora DNA for all of your cannabis testing needs. Now back to the show.
And I mean, number one thing I want everyone to do is to have just a couple, not every plant, but a couple sticky traps in every room, and even in their clone and mom space. And what I find most people are using these for is a trap versus a monitoring tool. And really what you want to do is have a couple in your space that you can go to evaluate what's in there. But let's run through like the major pests and kind of what to look for and what you'll see.
Yeah.
So like, fungus gnats are something I see in most gardens, not generally like something that's going to take out your crop or make you fail, but they're just a pain and they're annoying. But they're also one of the easiest to treat for. The larval stage, it lives in the soil and it looks like this tiny little worm. Sometimes you'll see them if you pull your pot out or your plant out of your pot. And if you looked at the outer edge of your pot, sometimes you'll see them wiggling around on the outside edge after a watering. Generally, you won't see a big plant downfall with that pest. Sometimes they'll get stuck up in the buds later in flower as a problem, but otherwise it's really just annoying. Fungus gnats love moisture. So that high moisture settings, cocoa growers, rockwool growers, where they're just irrigating, 8-10 times a day, are really creating a favorable spot for them to live. Also, growers that aren't able to get the water out of their trays in a timely fashion, where you've got pooling water and algae growing, those are great, happy places for fungus gnats to just hang out and proliferate. So when you're treating for those bugs, you want to keep those spots in mind, as those can be places that you kind of overlook, drains and crack or spots on tables that are holding water.
Kind of
So
like
fungus gnats,
mosquito larva, right? Where a
yep,
little tiny bit of water is
little
enough.
wormy thing that kind of wiggles around.
Yeah.
Exactly. The adult looks like a little fruit fly. You'll get them stuck on your sticky traps. They do get stuck on sticky traps, and they're good. That does trap them, but trapping the adults doesn't solve anything. So if you're just using sticky traps, you're just throwing your money away, because you're only trapping the adult bug, and the larval stage just keeps repeating the process over and over. So treat the soil. That's where we use those Stradiolaelaps, scomitis, and the nematodes. And those work great. Start early, stay on top of it. It works like a charm. Let's go with thrips next. Thrips are a pain, but also very easy to manage with our bugs. You'll see some kind of silvery patches on the top of your leaves as far as damage. And you'll also see the little black specks, which will be their poop kind of mixed into those little silvery patches where they're sucking the juice out of your leaves. You'll see like kind of long, slender, longer bug compared to like a mite. Usually kind of tan to yellow in the young stage, and they'll kind of turn a little brown or black as they get a little older. They can be a pain in the butt. Again, starting early with some Swirsky and some Stradio will really keep you ahead of it. They will definitely proliferate if you're not going to do anything about it. You can usually grow and continue growing with thrips in your facility. They're not going to like be a spider mite infestation where your entire crop is webbed and you can't do anything. Right. So, Swirsky is a great tool to combat thrips, but also Aureus, which is the pirate bug. And Aureus is one we haven't talked about, but it's a curative bug. I use that when I have thrips in the room. I need help fighting them. It likes the adult thrips, so it'll eat the bigger ones. And so we'll throw some of those in the mix when we're battling an outbreak. But yeah, we find thrips to be very manageable with the beneficials, and starting in that early veg release and doing another release in veg really sets you off with a really good footprint. So if you've got thrips, we can help you for sure.
Nice. What about aphids next?
Aphids, I hate aphids. They're like they're the hardest one to treat with beneficials. Aphids, the problem is that they can just poop out babies. They don't even need to make eggs. They can just reproduce asexually. So they're constantly spitting out babies, and it's hard to keep up with them. So we generally would see them. They're going to be green. They could be yellow. They could be pink. They come in a bunch of different colors. They all are just a pain in the butt. You'll see them up and down the stems. They like to kind of congregate on the stem of the plant and towards the top, more of the new growth. And when you're looking at your plants and you're like, what am I seeing? You'll see kind of puckering of the leaves. They like to eat on the youngest leaves, and it kind of comes out just looking a little weird. And that's usually for me with thrips and aphids is I'll see some distorted new growth, which will be like, oh shoot, I need to look a little closer. And yep, sure enough, there's some aphids, or sure enough, there's some thrips, because they love to munch on the plant, the leaf that's not even unfolded yet. And so once that thing folds out, it's got some weird edges to it, and it's kind of got some weirdness. So those are good telltale signs to kind of keep your eye out for.
And I guess
as far as
root aphids would be a secondary category, right? Like a different
totally different beast. Yeah. Equally challenging to deal with, especially just where it's located and the size of it. So root aphids, they're an aphid that lives in the soil, and they munch on your roots, and you'll see your plants starting to look, well, number one, they're not drinking and eating like they were. So the roots are compromised. And generally what I see is growers don't catch it, and they keep watering the same way, and they're just exacerbating the problem because they're just overwatering their plants. So one thing to keep in mind with root aphids is managing a really healthy root zone can reduce their impact. So managing those drybacks and keeping a really nice oxygenated root zone can reduce their ability to take over. So just as a side note, but yeah, you'll see your plants not drinking. They'll kind of look a little wilty sometimes if it's really bad, because again, they're just not drinking right. They'll look stunted. And yeah, you'll pull your pot up, you'll pull the media up, and you'll be able to see them crawling around on your roots. And they'll usually be a blackish color, kind of depends on their age. But yeah, they're a pain in the butt. And we usually use everything we have. So we'll use a mixture of root drenches along with an aggressive beneficial program using the stradiolaelaps that we talked about, along with the rove beetle, which we didn't talk about. Rove beetle is a bigger black bug compared to the mite.
I've used it.
You can see them. They're cool. They run around. They do a great job.
They're really long and black, right? They're like really long.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll throw basically everything at them, and even then, it's like to get to full eradication takes time and money. And that's really the message I send to people. It's like, yes, we can figure this out, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take some money to throw at it. So if you have the option
of the garden, right? Like how many rooms are dealing with, how much new media, what's the cycle of life for these plants? Like where can you interrupt the cycle of life and take a hold of it? And it kind of depends on the production happening at whatever garden.
It's tricky. I mean, these bigger facilities, it's not, you can't throw everything away. You can't start over. You have to figure out how to work with it. So for those growers, it's like quarantining your spaces, making sure that veg and mom is able to start clean. So like if you're going to dump all your money into something, start your new crops clean and maintain them clean. Trying to bring a whole flower room back that's infested with root aphids, I'm not going to give you the results you want. Nobody is.
Right.
But
it's too late.
I try to set every grower up with reasonable expectations as to what these bugs will do. And in every curative situation, it's like, in the future, if we can start earlier, we'll never have to spend this much money, So preventative is the name of the game. Start early, spend your money early before the problem exists, and you won't have these huge fires that you have to put out and spend thousands of dollars trying to figure out. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I've been trying to hit home with growers since I started this company is, my bugs cost money, and you're releasing them before you have spider mites, but it's insurance. It keeps them from coming, and they're going to come. They're going to get you eventually. They all do. Even me, I fight bugs all day. I mean, it's like you just expect it and you know how to manage it. And instead of putting out these huge fires, I'm just making slight adjustments to my ship to reflect slight adjustments in the environment and the bug pressure.
Yeah.
And so it's a different way of living, and it's a much more pleasant way of living.
It's a smart way to go. For every cultivator out there, if you're not thinking preventatively, you're always going to be chasing your tail, and you're always going to be,
Yep.
you're never going to be hitting the numbers that you penciled out, that you expected, and you threw all this capital at and this setup and the equipment and stuff. If you're not being preventative with it, you're going to be chasing your tail and losing money and being more stressed than you need to be.
Yeah.
One last bug before we move on to some curative options, because I know I interrupted you on the spider mites. So identification and what we could do about them spider mites.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think most people are kind of familiar with the webbing and the damage. So the damage you'll see is kind of the speckling white dots on the top of your leaves. In a bad scenario, you're going to start seeing those webs form on the bottom and then across the plant. Again, they're easy to deal with if you start early. If you're dealing with webbing, if you're to the stage of webbing, you've come pretty far and you haven't caught it. And I can't really help you significantly. I can help slow it down. I can offer some suggestions, but it's all about scouting. It's all about starting catching it early. So the bugs we use for spider mites are going to be Persimolis. Persimolis is a predatory mite that only eats spider mites. And so if I have spider mites active in a room, that's my go-to. I won't use Swirsky. I won't use anything else because it's very laser focused on that specific pest. Now, if I'm looking to prevent spider mites in a more holistic approach, then I would stick with Swirsky, as it will eat them and along with other things. So Persimolis is my go-to on a curative on I have spider mites, and then Swirsky is my preventative go-to. I don't have spider mites, but I don't want them.
Right. Smart. And so we'll segue that into the curative section of this little conversation with, this curative option for spider mites being what you just mentioned, the rove beetle being a curative option for root aphids. What other curative options are there in your arsenal?
Yep. So we've got, so we talked about rove beetle. We've got aureus, so that pirate bug, which is great for the thrips. We have the lace wings, which you buy them from me either in an egg form or in a larval form. And the larva is what's going to be eating thrips, aphids. It loves aphids. I generally use lacewings when I'm battling aphids, as the larva it looks like a little alligator and just eats all kinds of stuff. Nice. And then let's see. So I also will use, for aphids, we'll use a bunch of our parasitic wasps. So there's a few different types of them. People think of like regular looking wasps when I say that name out loud, but it's the size of a fruit fly, and it's a bug that relies on aphids to reproduce. So this little wasp flies around and it finds an aphid, and it lays its egg inside the body of the aphid while the aphid's alive. And the aphid walks around happy, and this little egg's growing, and all of a sudden the egg hatches and eats the aphid from the inside out. And so you've got this dead aphid and you got this new wasp, and the cycle continues. Wow. So
interesting.
There's a few different species that we carry, and I use different species depending on the type of aphid present. So there's different aphids out there, and the different wasps kind of prefer different size aphids. So when I'm helping somebody, the first step will be like, can you send me some pictures of your bugs so I can ID them for sure? And then from there, we'll figure out which predator is going to be the best fit for that specific species of aphid. I think those would be my top curative guys. Nice. They're generally a little bigger, a little more voracious, just monsters. I love them.
Yeah. And those rove beetles are, I would always just watch them working, right? You just see them coming in and out of the soil, just hunting down. They got like long, slender bodies. They just out there hunting, slithering, it's like, it's pretty cool to watch. For sure. And those are easy to spot enough with the naked eye too. Like those are big enough to spot with the naked eye. Yep. It's the larva, it's the smaller stage stuff where you want to get the microscope out, the small mites to see, and identify what you're really working with.
Every grower, it's a great tool to have in your tool belt is a good scope. And for $80, you can get a good digital one. And, again, you guys can just send me a a text or a DM with a picture, and I'll help you figure it out. You don't expect everyone to know what all these bugs look like. And
Right.
again, our goal is to kind of just make it as easy as possible for you all.
I love it. I love it. Little question here, little taking it back a little bit. Do root aphids fly like fungus gnats do and end up on sticky traps as well?
They do. Yeah. A lot of people will get them mis-ID'd. It's at their final adult stage is they'll get wings. So very often I get called in and I'm like, they think they're fighting fungus gnats, and then we'll pull out the sticky traps and really scope them. Because on a sticky trap, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference. And
Got it.
once you look up close at the body's a lot rounder. The wings are shaped a little different. I mean, once you look at it, you see the difference. But if you're just looking this far away from a sticky trap, you wouldn't see it, and you'd think you had fungus gnats. So you want to make sure you always want to make sure you positively ID your pest before you take any action, whatever it is. As a lot of people panic. The other day I had a guy send me, he's panicky. He's got root aphids, and finally get some pictures over, and it's springtails. And so you just want to start there because it will set you down the right path. So we have a totally different plan. And springtails are, they're a pest, but they're really, unless they're outrageous, they're not a problem. And we can still set up a plan to kind of get them out of your facility, but not root aphids, So I was very happy to have that situation.
Absolutely. So remember that, everybody. Just monitor, take pictures of what you're seeing, confirm what it is, so you take the right steps to address whatever potential problem may be at hand there. Fantastic. I love that. I think there's a lot of good value and tidbits, boiled into here, and it kind of just triggers more and more questions where, we got to do this again where we dive deeper in certain segments.
For sure. I'm down, man.
We'd even touch on, indoor versus outdoor, outdoor applications, greenhouse applications, a few other things in there. So for everybody out there listening, if you want more info, just let us know. And in the meantime, you can absolutely reach out. So this is going to take us to like the end of our show here. Let's leave the people wanting more. But what's a good place for people to learn more about Plantsman Group? The website, what kind of resources are on there?
So yeah, we've got a great website, plantsmangroup.com. That's going to be where you can see all of our different bugs. It's got resources as far as how to release, what bugs they eat. But that can even still be pretty, overwhelming for a new person that's never looked at bugs before. Our Instagram page is a nice, interactive place for you to learn about us and to interact with us. And it's Plantsman_group. I'm active on there all the time. I try to, create a very welcoming and education oriented spot, where we're just sharing information, and, no question is dumb, and, just come at me. I'll help you figure it out. That's the goal. So you can catch us on our Instagram page. You can always just give us a call. Again, I pride this company, and I made this company on answering the phone and responding to people's questions, the basic stuff, So you can always reach us at our basic number here at 248-916-8550. And me or my assistant, Abigail, will answer the phone. But again, we will walk you through step by step on what to do. And if you already know what you need, then you can hop on our website and order it, and it'll ship right to your door.
I love that, man. Taking it back to the days where you actually called somebody with a question, another person actually answers and has a solution for you. Like
exactly.
Such
basic stuff, man.
Such a basic thing that used to be so normal, and we've gotten away from. So that's got to be, especially if you're in the garden and you're in your work day and you got an issue, and it's all at hand. It's hard sometimes to just go sit down and start typing, and let's see, like sometimes you just want to call, talk to somebody, and start
Nick,
moving.
What do I do?
Yeah, send the pictures right now. Boom, 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 and get the ball moving on what you got.
And that's how it works. I mean, if I showed you my list of text messages, and I mean, I get it, and I'm a grower, and that's all the things that I focus on are because of experiences I've had as a grower. So, I'm here for you guys, and I'm one of you guys. I'm not this big corporation. Nick with the Plantsman that likes bugs and likes plants.
Small business, small business in America, just doing things right, thinking about the people first, thinking about the customers first, customer service oriented. Um, you know, answers the phone when you call them. Like, it doesn't get much better than this, folks. So, and if you plan on reaching out to Plantsman Group and to Nick and to Abigail and the rest of the team out there, or placing an order with them, be sure to use discount code Clone Coach because I'm sure they'll take care of you. If you said, "Hey, I'm a fan of Clone Coach. I'm on the Clone Coach team. I need some bugs, Nick. I need some help, Nick." Clone Coach sent me. Even if
Absolutely.
even if I didn't send you directly, if you drop the name, I'm sure they'll take care of you.
Yeah, if you guys are ever shopping on the website, definitely use Clone Coach as your discount code. That'll get you 15% off of any order that you purchase. You will also get that if you guys just reach out to me directly and just name drop Clone Coach. We'll knock off 15% off your order. But yeah, just reach out. We'll help you figure it out. No question is done.
I love it. I love it. And lastly, Nick, just where do you see the industry growing here, going here? And I mean, it's just kind of a paint the future view for Nick. Where do you see it going, and where would you hope it goes?
I think it's heading in the direction of a lot of the other, like alcohol, and where it'll branch into, the big and the small, the craft and
Hmm.
the mass. I think we're already kind of heading in that direction. I'm coming from the ornamental side where I get to see how they've done it, where um, genetics get patented, and I think that's probably maybe a long-term future for cannabis, where varieties have patents on them, and you can't propagate them unless you have a license, and so I think there's a lot of interesting directions that I think could be pulled from the industry that I'm in right now, which is just how it's been running. And as it gets legal across states, then we can really dive into genetic banks and all kinds of cool. I've got a lot of cool ideas for the future, but one step at a time.
In due time.
But
In
yeah, I
due
visualize it being fully legal in the next 10 years, and a whole different world. And there's going to be craft and there's going to be mass. And I'm hoping to stay on the craft, delightful side of things and smoke good flower for the rest of my life.
I think that connoisseur side of you is not going to let you go to the mass side, which is fantastic to hear because that's the side I want to be on too, is the craft side, flavor, connoisseur, the love for the plant and sharing value, sharing, the community, the connection that this plant brings to everybody, So fantastic, Nick. I really thank you for joining me here today. This has been a fantastic episode. There's not enough time in this episode to get into everything we want to get into, but for everybody out there that wants to learn more, reach out to either of us. I have a good feeling we're going to be doing a lot more informative content, educational content for everybody out there because this is a deep conversation to have. And once again, I think the biggest takeaway is being preventative with things. So just like starting a garden, you don't want the best time to start a garden is yesterday. So plant the garden today. So don't wait any longer. Get preventative with your gardens. Reach out to Plantsman Group. This has been another episode of Clone Coach Podcast. I'm Paul, your Clone Coach. Nick, thank you for joining.
I appreciate the opportunity, Paul, and I look forward to future conversations with you. Hope everyone has a great day.
Attention licensed operators in California. Are you looking for high quality nursery stock? Look no further than Refined Genetics. They provide top-notch clones, teens, and seeds to ensure the success of your operation. No order is too big. For a limited time, use discount code CloneCoach for 10% off your first order. Don't miss out on this opportunity to secure a solid nursery partner. Contact sales@refinedgenetics.co. And yes, it's .co, not .com. Catch you on the next episode of Clone Talk. Do you want to be a guest on Clone Talk? It's easy. Just send me an email. heyclonecoach@gmail.com. We'll get you all set up. I look forward to having you on the next episode.